It's time for Focus Africa, and we turn our attention still on Kenya, where President William Ruto has announced a sweeping dismissal of nearly his entire cabinet in response to widespread anti-government protests. This bold move follows a series of demonstrations against proposed tax hikes that erupted into deadly violence, putting Ruto's administration in its most serious crisis yet.
In a dramatic turn of events, President William Ruto has dismissed almost his entire cabinet, excluding only Foreign Minister Musalia Mudavadi. This decision comes after protests against planned tax increases led to violent clashes and significant unrest. To help us understand the potential impact of these changes and what they mean for the future of Kenya, we are joined by Chris Otieno, Global and Regional Security and Safety Risk Analyst. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Now, let's talk about President Ruto's decision to dismiss his entire cabinet. For you, what do you make of this? Is this, or does this indicate, sincerity in terms of the president, listening to the people, or yielding, or it's just a PR optics?
I would say one thing, that it is normal for any cabinet in this globe, in this world, to be dismissed. But most importantly for this particular one in our country, Kenya, is that it has come at a time where we had quite a number of civil strife, a lot of complaints on tax increases, a lot of complaints on how our leaders are conducting themselves, and a lot of complaints on the high cost of living, to include household spend. But on the other hand, we are saying that it is also in line with what the demands were, because so far in the history of my country, Kenya, this is the shortest serving cabinet subsequent to the president taking the right action. Everybody in the country is very happy. A lot of people are celebrating, saying as a win to the strife that we had. And we are looking forward to see the kind of persons that will be brought up in the country. And we know and hopeful that they do not emulate the outgoing, take our country down the high taxation level, as this other cabinet has just done.
You just mentioned some of the highly or highlighted most of the deep-seated dissatisfaction among the youth and Kenyans in general. How significant is this youth movement, and what are, besides just the tax hikes now, what is now their main grievances with the government? Is this anti-government? Are they still calling for the resignation of William Ruto? Talk to us. Chris, are you there? I seem to be losing Chris there. Chris is a global and regional security and safety risk analyst. Chris, can you hear me? Chris, are you there?
I can hear you, although you're breaking, but I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. I was asking about, you just highlighted some of the deep-seated dissatisfaction with the youth as well as Kenyans in general. And so the action or the protest by the youth is still raving and still ongoing. It's now away from tax hikes. What is now their concern? What are they calling for now? Is this still William Ruto's resignation, or is there more to the protest now?
Our youths have a raft of items that they are calling for. At the helm of what they're calling for is that the president must go. But we are seeing that the president has done quite a number of, he's taken quite a number of raft measures to ensure that he is assuring the public of his commitment to better this country, this motherland of Kenya, in terms of economic performance. Nevertheless, we still have other areas that the youths are complaining of. Taxation is still strife, is still quite high in the agenda. We have seen what the president has done. A number of ministries have been collapsed. A number of parastatals in the government have been collapsed. Around 47 of them will be collapsed and absorbed into ministries. Basically, we're saying the president has taken austerity measures, but the citizens, the young citizens of our nation are saying This is not enough. We want more. And at the helm of it, just like I've mentioned, they are saying, reported that they want the president out of office because of the hardships that we are going through as a nation. And some of us are seeing this as a direct direction or instruction from world financial bodies like World Bank and IMF, who also voice their voices and put their voices in what is happening in my country now.
So, I mean, will we have a situation whereby the president maybe will resign? And, I mean, this is an elected president. There's due process to these things, right? If at all the president would leave office, maybe, it must be, an impeachment process. So, is this an affront to the democratic process? Even though we know, yes, you have your right to protest and all of that. Are the youths taking it too far? By asking for the resignation of the president?
It is normal for any groups of persons involved in civil strife to have their demands. We have seen that the president made part of their demand. He met some of these young youths and had a talk with them, and something came out from that discussion. But on the flip side, we cannot call for the president to leave office and he just wakes up and leave. No, that has to follow a constitution process, because we cannot have that office vacant in any nation here or any other party in this world. There must be a process where the constitution is followed to have that office filled, if at all this is going to happen. But I can assure you that will not happen. We will see this president go through his term. We will see him deploy his raft number of measures to correct what has been done by this government. And like I've just said a few minutes ago, the ultimate is we see the kind of person who will be elected or who will be nominated by the president to go and serve in the cabinet that is going to lead our nation up to the end of the term of this president.
The economic conditions in Kenya have been deteriorating. It's no secret at this point. And the criticism are mounting over government spending and, perceived incompetence as well. How do you think these economic factors, would change, given the dissolvement of this of his cabinet, and also his promise that he would install or form a broad-based government through extensive consultations?
From where I'm seated as a risk analyst, supported by a number of my colleagues, the same discipline, what we think needs to be done is for the president to ensure that he wins back public trust with reference to the measures that he's promised us that he is going to take. From where we are seated, public trust is at almost minimum low. Never before has it seen this level of trust in the presidency. But what he is continually doing, what our Excellency the President is continually doing, is reassuring the public that we are going to get there. But at the end of it, what is most critical in the whole process is the moral standing of those fellow Kenyans who will take their position in that cabinet. Will they be guided by a moral stand, guided also by the Constitution, or are we going to see personal interests taking the first seat and the national interest taking the back seat? That is where we're going to peg the ultimate commitment of the president and the people who are going to come to take over these seats. But where we are seated, we are saying, yes, we are seeing some good promises from the president. What now remains is implementation of these promises. And like we say, like what we have seen, implementation is where we have a lot of drawbacks, we have a lot of bottlenecks, and that is what we shall use to measure what we are being promised here as the next phase of changes economically and socially in my motherland, Kenya.
Now, what should we, of course, do you anticipate, will be happening in the coming weeks?
Chris, are you there?
Chris, did you get me? All right, Chris, let me take my question again. I asked you, what do you anticipate happening in the coming weeks?
If I've gotten your question right, we hope that the president is going to constitute his cabinet, because where we are standing now, he is leading the country with the Prime Cabinet, the Deputy President, and permanent secretaries in different ministries. So we are hoping that he can first hasten that process, make the right choices, and bring us Kenyans who are technocrats in leadership and in respective ministries that are constituted or meant by the Constitution to steer this country to prosperity. If he goes on and does a political selection of those persons to fill these positions, then probably we are seeing ourselves going back to the same place that we've been, with this cabinet being the shortest serving cabinet in my country. So we are expecting the president to appoint technocrats, people with proven leadership, people with proven track record in their respective areas, to be able to deliver the success which is economically and socially to my motherland, Kenya.
And if he appoints his technocrats and this bureaucrats and people who can spare or steer the economy to greatness, do you think with those appointments that would sort of ease the protests and the action we've seen across the nation?
That will be just part of the iceberg. So we are expecting that the president will rise to the occasion and appoint persons who can, first of all, appeal to the nation in terms of their abilities, in terms of their records, because far from now, there was a dream team that was appointed by one of the former presidents that constituted of quite a number of technocrats, leading bank CEOs, leading business entrepreneurs who did some good job in the country to uplift our economy. So we don't expect a repeat of that. We are expecting a betterment of that in the years to come, because I'll tell you for sure that life in Kenya right now, the cost of living right now in Kenya is pretty high. We are seeing household spend has gone so very up, and these are the constitutions, or these are the constituents of why our youths and the Gen Zs and the millennials were up in arms to try and call on the office of the president to adjust and make this very right. So we are expecting his appointment to have been gone through in details and to bring forth a number of Kenyans who are completely very good technocrats and are not odd, are new faces and can execute proper plans to see our country get back to its glory days. Because you know, in East Africa, Kenya has the biggest, East African countries, Kenya has the biggest economy in terms of GDP, in terms of bilateral trades, and in terms of any other pillars that support a national economy in terms of performance.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for your time on the program, Chris Otieno, for your valuable insights also. And we also hope that the situation in Kenya, being a complex one and evolving, would eventually have a lasting solution. Once again, thank you, Chris.